Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talk Your Abs Off. I'm your host, Abby Clapper, and today I am joined by my guest, Erika Sweeney, who has competed in 2 seasons of bodybuilding. And I'm going to have Erika tell you a little bit more about herself and her experience with that. But I know a lot of us in the fitness industry and outside see a lot of bodybuilders and are just absolutely amazed and probably have a lot of questions. I know I have a lot of questions. So we're going to get those questions answered today. But Erika, I'm so happy that you're here. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Erika Sweeney, and I live in Wisconsin. I have real estate as my real job. I started bodybuilding just back in 2019, which is a whole nother story I can get into, but I did compete in 2019. I got my pro card in my second show. Was going to compete again in 2020 when, you guessed it, COVID happened and my shows got canceled. But then I kind of focused in on just a really crazy goal that just seemed so out of reach. So I dialed in and I competed in 2021 and got my IPE pro card. I competed in Natty Revolution where I got my first pro win. And then I competed at the Natural Olympia in Las Vegas with INBA, PNBA. So it was awesome.
That's amazing. Those are some really big accomplishments. So congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you.
And can I ask how old you were when you competed in 2019, when you kind of started all this?
Yes, I started this journey when I was 45. So my first show, I was 46 years old, which is crazy. But it's a long story, but it was one of those moments where I was like, I'm not getting any younger. I'm not going to get any slower with work. And it was one of those things on social media that just called my name. So I had a crazy intuition along with some life experiences that told me to go for it, and it changed my life. So glad I did.
Yeah, well, let's dive into that a little bit. Tell me what got you into bodybuilding when you first got started with it.
Yeah, again, it was one of those moments where life was crazy, boiling over. As a mom, a business owner, totally burned out. My dog actually took gum off the counter. She was just 3 years old, and I brought her into the vet hospital, and she unfortunately passed away from there. But sitting there with her on the floor of that veterinary hospital, I was really overwhelmed with how I was going to be able to deal with it. And so I begged her to send me a cardinal. And a couple of days after she passed away, I was taking a shower, bawling my eyes out, and I looked ahead and I saw a cardinal out the window. And it was very deliberate for me. And it kind of gave me a little voice in my head that made me realize life is short. Like, if you want to do something, you got to just go for it. So I made an appointment with a bodybuilding coach and held on tight.
Oh, I'm sorry that you lost your dog. It's hard when something, kind of sad like that happens, but it did push you out of your comfort zone so that you could try something new and find something to kind of push past some of that grief. And did you find that it helped you in those moments of grief?
That's one thing I've said about bodybuilding, and not just about grief, but about life in general, is you get just this narrow focus on a goal where, you're concentrating on your workouts and your food, and it's very disciplined that it kind of mutes the noise and the stress of everyday life, which really can help not only get to that goal, but just with coping mechanisms with everyday and business stress and everything else.
Yeah, and it's a really healthy coping mechanism. There are a lot of really unhealthy coping mechanisms. So that's something that you could lean into that was really beneficial. So yeah. I really want to start digging into what bodybuilding looked like for you. I have so many questions, and I see so many women and men too on my Instagram who compete in bodybuilding, and it's, never something that, anybody can do anything that they put their mind to. I am not at that point because I'm scared, and I see everyone. I'm like, oh my gosh, that could never be me. But I really want to know what did a training week look like for you? I'm sure it looked different throughout your prep, but just give me kind of a general what it looked like as far as like
Sure.
weightlifting and cardio and things like that.
Yeah, I hired a bodybuilding coach, so she would write my 6-week plans for me. I would do strength training, usually about 5 days a week. I would have minimal cardio at first, and then as we got closer to show dates, of course, we would ramp up that cardio. Tracked macros, which before starting that process, I had no idea what that was or how to do it, or crazy. So again, just weeding down those macros as we got close to it. My first season, I started late because I kind of jumped in a whim. So it was only a 4-month prep. My second season was much longer because I bulked during 2020. I'll call it that. But then 2021, I started cutting in February, where my first show was in August, and then competed again through November. So it just really, following what you have to do every single day with everything you have.
Yeah, wow, I can imagine. I like that you bulked during 2020. I think a lot of people bulked during 2020.
Yeah, I'm going to say it was planned, but it happened for sure.
I love that. That's too funny. So, when you're in prep, what does your nutrition plan look like differently when you're in prep and when you're off season? What are the differences there?
Well, after my first season, I reversed. So for people who don't know, you're in deficit with your macros. So when you're done competing, you have to put those back up to normal slowly. Otherwise, you'll put on fat in the wrong places, and it's just not a healthy transition. So once you get to that point, then you go on kind of a maintenance tracking. With my first season, since I was intending to compete again in March of 2020, I didn't reverse too high because I had the intention of competing so soon. And then when I went off that, I probably didn't reverse the best because COVID hit. So, but it's a lot more difficult than I thought. And again, 2021, when I got off that season, I reversed pretty well, but it's hard because all of a sudden you don't have to do it. So cheat a little bit here, cheat a little bit there, and then it kind of can snowball sometimes. But I did okay. But honestly, off season, I don't track my food. I think life is about balance. And when I'm in prep season, I'm all in. I get on the scale. When I'm not in prep, I don't get on the scale. I don't count my food. I eat whole foods. I keep an eye on my carbs and my fats. I eat enough protein. So just trying to give my body fuel. I will say that for women, especially women that are my age, I am 51, going to be 52 in September. As you're dealing with those hormonal shifts, the change in your calorie intake and the change of your body can really affect your hormones, and it can be really hard. So I think it's really important to have a balance that is healthy, depending on where you're at in your life.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like you have a pretty healthy balance, because I can imagine from what I've heard when you're in prep, like you're very precise, right? You're very precise with your macros. Things are very specific. You have to make sure that you're eating exactly correctly what you need to be eating. But then to be able to be off prep and kind of recover, like you said, I think is important. Is it possible for people to do seasons like back to back? Or is there always a period of like a break where people's bodies can recover and kind of bring those calories back up?
That's a really good question. Some people that I know compete every year. A lot of people will take 2, 3, or sometimes more time off, again, just to let your body heal a little bit, because not everybody's body does well when they're in that much of a deficit for that period of time. Also, depending on what category you're competing in, you may want to be putting on more muscle mass before you compete again, because most people want to improve year after year. But again, it's really important that you listen to your body, because sometimes when women are in deficit, no matter what age they are, it can just really mess up those hormones, and it can take years to recover. So you really have to give yourself some grace when you come off that season. But getting back to your question too, with macros, having not had experience with that, I really didn't understand that you're counting everything you're putting in your mouth. Like gummy vitamins were out the window because that was too many carbs. You're like, that's crazy to me now. But, I had no idea how much discipline it would take in every aspect of my life when I started the journey. But I was hooked once I got on that stage.
That's crazy. If you do think about it, though, I mean, for people who do track their food, and I have my clients, for the most part, track their food if they're willing and able, salad dressings, different condiments that you put on. If we're not measuring, that's where you get a lot of those extra calories, things like coffee creamers, things like that. So as soon as you do start tracking, like you realize where those extra calories are coming from, and how to get, when you're really specific, how little you can eat in order to get that certain amount of calories. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and like you said, things like salad dressings and like ranch dressing and even the sugars and ketchup, like I just normally don't use those condiments. It will, barbecue sauce sometimes, but I know now that those have a lot of carbs and sugar. So I kind of understand, what I'm doing when I do it. Doesn't mean I always make the best decisions, but I'm better than I was, say, before I ever started competing at all.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit, what was your background with fitness before bodybuilding?
I would go to the gym a few days a week. Again, I'm a business owner, so I was used to working, 50 plus hours a week and had kids, and would fit that in when I could. I did a half marathon in 2014, I believe. I hate running, still hate running, but that was my first taste of competition. I wasn't an athlete in school growing up. Again, just always worked. And so for me, that was exciting to set that goal and then reach it and then end up doing better than I thought I could. And that was so empowering and really was the beginning of a life-changing journey.
Yeah, I think there is something about competition. It's not for everyone, but if you are someone who hasn't done, sports or anything growing up, and then you find, a competition that you do like, whether it's, there's CrossFit competitions or there's races, there's Ironmans, there's triathlons, things like that, whatever it is, they can be really enjoyable. And honestly, for me, I haven't done it in a while, but I kind of enjoy running sometimes. And so the way to do it for me is by signing up for a race and doing a race. And that motivates me to go faster than I normally would on a training run or things like that. And it keeps me going. And it's nice to have a goal kind of at the end of the road to look forward to.
Right. And it's not always about beating other people. Well, sometimes that's part of the goal, but again, it's really setting that bar. And then when you cross it and you're faster than you thought, or you place better than you thought, just doing better than, that voice in your head tells you can really gives you that confidence to bring into other areas of your life.
Oh, that mental piece is such an important thing. What would you say was your biggest mental transformation through your bodybuilding experience?
Kind of what I described. I mean, that and that focus. I mean, I was able to bring a bit of that focus into my life and business and my continuing to inspire other women to do hard things. It carried me into my wellness journey where I'm downsized the real estate side and really focused on coaching and now my podcast, which is really impacting others to be that best version of themselves because I know how powerful and empowering, I should say, it is to experience that.
So amazing. And with those transformations, right, with those mindset shifts, challenges come along the way a lot of times. So what challenges did you find around like eating and gaining muscle as a woman? Did you find any challenges, especially a woman in your 40s at the time? What was that like for you?
Well, like I said, I'm 51. So I grew up in the 80s where everybody was stick thin and no backside, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is not me, never has been me. So I've always been a little bit thicker in that respect. And so it was a way for me to just gain some confidence in my body as it is. And another way where it was just empowered. I could walk into a room after strength training or in the middle of a season and just feel confident in my own shoes. And that was, again, it's just the biggest shift in mindset that it could be. It wasn't an arrogance. It was just I'm working hard. I feel good. This is really an awesome experience. And you just kind of glow. Yeah.
Yeah. And confidence is everything as a woman. I think we need more of it, especially in our society. So I think that that's a super amazing takeaway that you brought from that. And, speaking of like women in this society, I think there's probably some question as to women who maybe are worried that they're quote unquote too old to start lifting weights. So what advice would you give someone who says, "Oh, I'm too old, I can't do that"?
Oh, don't get me started. Well, first off, I also want to say that women think that they're going to get too bulky if they lift weights. I mean, I've been called that I have big arms, which I take as a compliment, but I work out very hard to get man arms.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I lift heavy 5 days a week. I've been lifting for 15, 16 years. So someone starts lifting and you're not going to all of a sudden look like a man. Like it's just not that easy.
Right. I know. I wish, right?
And then secondly, as far as your age goes, oh my gosh, our hormones, again, as I mentioned, as they decrease, we lose not only bone density, but muscle mass every year, especially after we hit the menopause stage or even after our 40s. We need to have that muscle mass to help support our bones as we age because otherwise we're going to get frail. We're going to more likely to fall. I mean, there's so many statistics going forward as we get older of how muscle mass is really the longevity that you need. So you don't have to deadlift 300 pounds. You can just start slow by lifting light. You can, ramp it up little by little. And as you start to feel stronger and you can start to see the difference, you might just love it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I also think about kind of like you said, you want strong bones as you age, right? So a lot of women, as they get older, they'll maybe see osteoporosis, osteopenia,
Exactly.
and those things they can't necessarily, well, so you can prevent it. If you don't have it and you start lifting now, you can prevent, osteoporosis, things like that. If you have it, if you've been diagnosed with like osteopenia, there have been studies that show that you can kind of pause it. So you can stop the progression of it getting significantly worse. So even if you have it, you can still benefit from lifting like you said, even light weights to start and then going up from there. A lot of times I'll have some of my like older clients or people who come to my classes will do explosive wall push-ups, or will do, little hops, things like that, just to give a little bit more healthy stress on those bones, without going balls to walls crazy. But it is just so important to get that extra little bit of stress so that you can continue to be strong as you age.
Right. And some people feel intimidated going into the gym. I'll tell you a little story. After my 2021 season, so I had gotten my pro card, I competed Natural Olympia. That whole prep season, I worked out at home in our garage because we had that from COVID. And so it was after that season that I ended up going into a public gym. And I hadn't been to one since, before COVID. And I walked in really uncomfortable. And it took me a second. I'm like, Erika, you're a professional bodybuilder. Like, what is your problem? But I can understand why people feel intimidated, but once you get there, you get to be more comfortable, and nobody is paying attention to what other people are doing. They're just in the zone. So I would encourage people to try to find a gym that fits a good balance of what makes them feel comfortable. If you don't like to go to a gym, and getting small weights at home or finding a coach online that can give you a guidance of what to do, there's so many options. It doesn't have to be an only weight training program. It can be a good mix with a HIIT program or whatever. There's just so many options. You just have to find what works well for you, that you're staying active, and then add some strength training in.
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. My last episode that we did, I was talking to a fellow yoga instructor, and we were talking about incorporating yoga, even if it's, because there are some pretty hard yoga classes, right? That can still put some strain on those muscles and make you work hard. And just, again, building the routine that fits your lifestyle and is things that you enjoy doing, right? So,
Right.
Like I was talking about with her, there are so many different types of gyms. There are like all female gyms. If you want to go to a gym that focuses on growing your glutes, if you want to go to a co-ed gym, if you want to go to a CrossFit gym, there are just so many options. There's truly, in this day and age, something for everyone.
Absolutely. Yep. So that's just not a valid excuse. That's what I'm saying.
I love it. I'm here for it. So where should someone actually start if they're curious about bodybuilding, but they're feeling overwhelmed?
Well, I would start by talking to a coach who does bodybuilding. I mean, that's what I did. And again, I started that process with a 4-month window between when I met my coach and when my first show was going to be, which is not long enough normally. But that gave me the opportunity not to think about it, because I couldn't be like, well, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Never. You know what I mean? So that all happened for a reason. There are so many awesome bodybuilders who will talk to you through Instagram. I mean, I've met the most amazing women through this journey. You kind of go into it thinking everyone's kind of fake and stereotypical bodybuilders, but man, they bring everybody up. They support each other. They've become my really good friends. So if you have questions, message me, message someone in your area who's done bodybuilding with questions that you have. It is just such a fun journey. You'll be just so proud of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, the accomplishment, and you're kind of up there almost as a team, right? So like everyone is, in their individual competition, but you're up there with other people who, have worked so incredibly hard, just like you have, to get up there and be where you want to be. And, you're all there, I'm assuming, supporting each other. And, as anything in the fitness industry, maybe there are a couple one-offs here and there, but it sounds like overall it's a really positive experience for everyone who's involved.
Absolutely. Yep. And again, I competed in the natural federations, but I know people that compete in NPC and just, all the different categories. And it's just a lot of really good people who like to work hard and get after it positive mindset. Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. This is truly like it's become its own sport, really.
Yeah,
I would
definitely.
say. Do you think it's like categorized as a sport?
Yeah, we call ourselves athletes, so I would think so.
That's amazing. I love that so much. Are you seeing any major differences like in how you train now compared to how you trained when you were younger? So this is more just talking about age, right? So because you're in your 50s now, do you train differently now than when you were maybe in your 30s?
I really didn't start lifting. I guess I did about 35-ish. I started lifting. I've always, done some at-home workouts and stuff, and used to go to classes. So I guess I shouldn't say that. But as far as like heavy strength training, it was probably about 15 years ago, just a couple days a week. I don't lift any differently or any less now than I did, say, 6-7 years ago when I started the bodybuilding journey, because I love lifting. Like, that's my therapy. I don't run. It's just kind of different that way. I do incorporate some HIIT training when I can, just to keep my body moving. I do yoga sometimes. I should do it more because I'm stiff. But I also got injured. I hurt my shoulder, had to recover from that. So you have to learn to pivot sometimes based on what's going on in your life. You have to learn to give yourself rest days, which I'm really bad at. So don't ask me about that. But as you get older, you also end up with a lot more fatigue and a lot more body pain. And just time wise, you might not have the time. So you really have to prioritize yourself in all those ways, for sure.
Yeah. So actually, you touched on a really good point, because I was talking to one of my clients about this the other day. So this client that I work with and myself, we're in our 30s, right? And we're finding that now that we're in our 30s, things are starting to hurt. Joints are starting to hurt a little bit as we, get out of bed. And I'm sure, you're a little bit older than me. And I also work with other like members who come to my group exercise classes who are in like their 60s and 70s. And I'll come in, I'll complain about like a shoulder pain, and they're like, "Oh, Abby, you have no idea." I'm like, "Okay, wait, hold on." Because honestly, even my client and I were talking about it, even though we are weightlifting, you're still putting, a load on these joints. So your joints might be a little uncomfortable, from time to time. I honestly don't think I can name a single person who lifts weights who hasn't had a pain from at one time or another. However, on the other side of that, if you're not lifting and you don't have strong joints, strong muscles to support the joints, things like that, you can be in a lot worse pain, right? So basically, all I'm saying is, at the age that we are, everyone's in pain. It's what kind of pain do you want to tolerate, right? Is it pain that you are able to work through and have muscles to support these joints, things like that, or do you want to have pain that you're not doing anything about?
Yeah, and I'll be upfront with it. Part of the reason why I started to work out in the first place is because I had a lot of fatigue and a lot of body pain. I never had a formal diagnosis, but I started finding out that the more active I was, and that lifting actually improved my pain. So when I
Mm,
get sore, like from heavy lifting, that's a good pain, right? Do I still
right.
get like pain? Yes, but when I started lifting, like I said, 15 plus years ago, that was one of my reasons is because I was having a hard time navigating the pain, and the less I worked out, the worse I felt. So that's another reason why it's hard for me to take, more than 2 days off in a row, because I can feel it.
Right. Yeah. You start to just get a little stiff, get a little sore,
Hmm.
sore in a bad
Yep.
way, not like the lifting
Yeah.
sore. That
Right.
different
Exactly.
type of pain, right? It's knowing whether or not it's like something serious or something that, you need the rest day or need to do some more yoga, right?
Right. Exactly. I just think it's important, again, for people to prioritize themselves. It's really important to stay active and find the ways to make your best version of yourself. I mean, we talk about, your mind and your body and your spirit, and it's a lot of work to be healthy. It's a lot of work to feel good. But you have to keep working at it and make sure to pivot when you need to. And really, we're getting old quick. Like every day we're getting older, and for me, again, now in my 50s, which is crazy to me, you just understand that it's more important than ever to take care of yourself. So I would advise people at any age to really put your health as a priority.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned the pivot, and I want to come back to that really quick.
Mhm.
How, if something happens, like let's say you get sick or let's say you get injured when you're in your prep for bodybuilding, how do you pivot your workouts to still reach the goals that you want to reach?
That's a great question. It depends on what it is, and it depends on how far out from your show you are. And that's why you have a coach, because they're going to
Mm,
know what your body is, how close it is to the show, whether you're ready, whether you can take time off. Sometimes your body needs 3, 4 days of rest just to recover and to not get flat and to not get injured. So, really important to have a coach during that journey that can help guide you with what the best steps are to take.
that's a really good recommendation. I think that's so smart. I think having a coach, and I've talked about this with other guests before, having a coach is so beneficial. No matter what kind of goal you have, finding someone
Mhm.
who can help you really look towards that goal and not lose sight of it along the way can be so beneficial.
And you have a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Another thing too, I'll talk about with bodybuilding is you will be surprised how many people that are not in fitness have a judgment. That you go to a family event and you're not eating, or you bring your prep food and you get the eye rolls, or,
Mhm.
oh, come on, just have this, or, the need to have a drink, or, whatever. And people in certain circles of your life don't always understand the changes that you make. And you just have to learn to stay strong and remember yourself and what your priorities are, and hold those close to you. And, that's okay. Let them be them and you be you, and show them how awesome you are. So,
Yeah, and that can be really hard. I think a lot of times people people can be food pushers and not really know it, right? And food pushers outside of just bodybuilding too, there are people who are like, oh, just have another plate, have another cookie, all these things. And it can be really hard, especially when you're first starting on your journey, your wellness journey or your fitness, whatever you're doing, to say no to those people who are close to you, family members, close friends who might not understand what you're doing or who that's not something that they're doing. So they don't, they think that you should be doing what they're doing.
And all of our activities are surrounded by food. Like that's what we do. We all get together for a family or a picnic or a ball game or whatever, and it's all food. And you can make good choices when you're at those places too. So just learn to pivot.
Take a little extra thought. And you can also, when I first became sober, like a year and a half ago, I had to find alternative activities to going out to the bars, right? And so now my friends and I will, we will go out to lunch or we'll get coffee, but also now it's like, oh, do you want to meet up and go for a walk? Do you want to, go to the beach, walk along the beach, things like that. So finding those alternative activities too that can still help you reach your fitness goals. If you need to get your steps in, offer for your friends to go for a walk with you, or just something active, even if it's walking around the zoo or the aquarium, just to get those extra steps in. It doesn't have to be miserable.
Right. And through my journey, I have met people who now are my best friends because they went through it as well. They understand. They want you to be that best version of yourself. So you may switch groups of people you hang out with, and maybe that's just best for you, and that's okay.
Yeah. I had a therapist one time tell me that that your friendships can last for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So sometimes you have those friends that are just there for a season who, it kind of comes and goes like seasons do. So that kind of helped me feel a little bit better about when things changed with relationships and things like that. So I think that ties in nicely. Well, Erika, the last part of my show is called Absolution. So as we know, sometimes in the fitness industry, things can be a little toxic, a little iffy. And my goal with this is to help people absolve themselves of any shame or guilt that they feel around some different things in the fitness industry that feel kind of icky. So I'm curious to know what your absolution is, Erika.
Well, we touched on it a bit. It's the really taking time for yourself. When you start your fitness journey, you might feel guilty for setting aside that time when you're not giving it to your family. That was one thing that was hard for me through, certain years of my life, is I wanted every minute to be taking care of my kids. Or not that I wanted to, but I felt obligated and wanted to. So taking that hour a day out of my family schedule felt selfish to me, which was hard. But I think it's, again, really important that you understand that you can't take care of others unless you're taking care of yourself. So you really need to allow yourself and give yourself grace to have that time to, again, go for a walk, get your steps in, prepare your food, or chase some crazy dream like going to Las Vegas to compete on a bodybuilding stage in your 40s. I mean, life is about lessons and about journeys, and you just have to keep learning and evolving and not get stagnant, and give yourself permission to be that best version of yourself.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Erika. That's wonderful. So now I want you to share a little bit. I know that you also have a podcast. So if you would want to tell my listeners about your podcast, about your coaching, and then where they can find you if they want to connect with you more.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, my podcast is called My Fit Tribe. And the idea of it came after my 2019 season, when I had met so many amazing people during my bodybuilding journey. And I thought to myself, why can't we have this for our life, where we bring each other up and encourage each other and just really work on that? And so as my life changed and things in my professional world changed, it started to grow. And I started the podcast last November. We are 30 episodes in today. And we focus not only on fitness, but on nutrition, on mindset, and spiritual and personal growth. So if you can download, follow, subscribe, that'd be great. But it's just, everybody has a story, and I learn something new from every guest I have, which is just a really awesome experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you do coaching as well?
I do some coaching. I do limited right now, just because between the podcast and then my real estate business, it's been kind of busy. So I'm hoping I can, the real estate business might slow down a little bit so I can up the coaching again.
What kind of coaching do you do?
I am a certified life coach. I also do some fitness coaching. I don't do nutrition coaching because, again, I hate tracking my food right now. But you can find me. Best way to reach me would be on Instagram. I'm Sweeney Figure Competitor. Also have my Fit Tribe Instagram as well. And then on Facebook, the same website is myfittribe.org.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Erika, for your time today, for sharing with us your experience over bodybuilding. It is a fascinating sport, and I hope that everyone has been able to take something away from it, even if it's maybe maybe they want to adjust their training plan to kind of fit more into their training schedule or find something that works well for them. Or maybe this is the push they need to explore that bodybuilding. So thank you so much for joining me today, Erika. If you do want to follow her, I will put all of her socials down in my show notes so that you can just pop those in super easily. And thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Talk Your Abs Off.